I am here today to announce that I am leaving the Republican Party. And will seek the Libertarian nomination for President of the United States. Being the nominee of the Libertarian Party is no done deal. And by that I mean it will be competitive, it'll be a debated process, and I respect and look forward to that process. The Libertarian nominee for president will be on the ballot in all 50 states, something that is very, very significant. Never before has there been such an outcry over the two-party system in this country. The fastest growing segment of American politics is decline to state and independence. We are just fed up with the two-party system. The Democratic Party, I think, has turned their backs on gay rights, marriage equality, their anti-war base, their anti-drug war sentiment. Neither party is offering up solutions that this country faces. Republicans are no longer the stewards of the pocketbook. Republicans are no longer good stewards of tax dollars. Look, we complain about President Obama's health care plan because it's unaffordable, and yet when Republicans were in control just a short time ago, controlling both houses of Congress and the presidency, what did they do? They passed a prescription health care benefit that at that time was the largest entitlement program that this country has ever faced. It wasn't affordable then, and it's not affordable now. What I think the opportunity of running as a libertarian is number one, it's really exciting. It's the ability to tell the American people that we live in a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy. Because in a democracy, you can vote yourselves a raise. And I think that's what the Democrats think, is that you can vote yourself a raise, and that's why we're in the predicament that we're in. And we live in a constitutional republic, which means that we are a country governed by laws and the United States Constitution. But what I think the Republicans don't recognize is that you can change the law, and that laws do need to be changed. And if you just look at the law, would we still have segregation in this country? Would we still not allow women the right to vote? That seems to be the tack that Republicans take. We pass wrong-headed laws. Libertarians talk about all the things that they're not going to do in office. I think my 750 vetoes as governor of New Mexico really gives me a unique voice when it comes to all the things that government should not do. I think to be libertarian comes from classical liberal. I think the majority of people in this country consider themselves classical liberal, and that is the notion that we're all fiscally conservative and we're actually socially liberal. As a libertarian president, as a candidate for the libertarian nomination, I'm going to talk all the time about balancing the federal budget. Let's balance the federal budget. That means cutting 43% from the federal government, and if we don't do that, I think we're going to find ourselves without a country. Let's enact the fair tax. And when I talk about taxes, libertarians are anti-tax all the way across the board, and I share in that. So the fair tax is the best of the worst, but I really believe that it reboots the American economy, and that at its base, the notion that it's the fair tax is just as the name implies. It's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you'll pay. It will also promote savings. Let's reduce welfare in this country. Let's reduce warfare in this country. Let's end corporate welfare now. Let's have a constitutional adherence to gay rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to gun rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to private property rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to women's rights. The Tea Party is right when they talk about let's reduce government spending now. Occupy Wall Street is right when they talk about, or when they express the outrage in this country over the fact that this country doesn't deal it out fairly. And at the root of not dealing it out fairly are both political parties that have their hands out to say, it's for sale. Give me money and I'll grant you your special favor, your loophole, and make that happen. And that's why we're in the predicament that we're in right now, is because it's not a level playing field. And libertarians, in my opinion, offer up that notion of level playing field. We need a strong U.S. dollar, not a weak U.S. dollar. We need to stop printing money in this country. We need to end the war on tens of millions of Americans who happen to use drugs. As President of the United States, I advocate legalizing marijuana. As President of the United States, I would end marijuana being a Schedule I narcotic. As President of the United States, I would pardon non-violent drug offenders, something that I did as governor of New Mexico. No one in this race, Democrat, Republican, either one, is talking about real solutions when it comes to the border. Look, we can secure the border without building a fence. What a waste of money. Let's make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to get a work visa, not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa. And then I just bang my head over the fact that all of the candidates, when they talk about border violence, none of them are addressing the root cause of border violence, which is the prohibition of drugs. Disputes that are being played out with guns rather than the courts. Speaking with a broad brush, I think Americans describe themselves as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. I'm doing this today because this is an agenda that I think resonates with most Americans, and it's an agenda that's not being addressed by either political party. I think we have a unique opportunity in this country to actually fix the problems that face us all, but it's not going to be business as usual. I want to thank all of you for being here. You have no idea how much it means for me to have you here this morning in support of this. I would like to just point out Kate Prusak, my fiance, Kate, just a wave, and my daughter, Saya, and her partner, Josh, that showed up. You know, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to so many of you, so many of my closest friends that are here today. Included in those closest friends really is a new friend, but it's Mark Hinkle. Mark is the chairman of the National Libertarian Party. I just think it speaks, and by the way, he is neutral. Mark is somebody who wants to promote a competitive libertarian field for president, and I absolutely respect that. And I just think it speaks volumes, though, that Mark has flown in to be here today, and I would like to turn the podium over to Mark. At the conclusion of his remarks, we'll open this up for questions and comments.
I wish you could all see the view that I'm looking at. This is very, very nice, and I'm very proud to be here. I've got a membership application in the Libertarian Party for Gary to sign. I have a voter registration card, thanks to Mike Blessing for bringing that. And so we're going to make it official today that Gary Johnson's going to join the Libertarian Party, and as he said, he's going to be seeking the nomination of the Libertarian Party. So I'm delighted to be back here in New Mexico. I actually spent a bit of time in New Mexico, in Lordsburg, New Mexico, when my dad was a train master for the Southern Pacific Railroad back when I was a teenager. And I'm glad that Gary is here to become a dues-paying member of the Libertarian Party and to register to vote as a Libertarian. But I also want to note that I'm actually welcoming Gary back to the Libertarian Party. I note through looking through our database, when Gary was the governor of New Mexico, he was actually a dues-paying member of the Libertarian Party. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because, of course, we have had past candidates in Congress like Ron Paul and Bob Barr and Mike Gravel join the Libertarian Party, but we've never had a two-term governor, and so I'm delighted to be here and to welcome Gary. To give you a little background, the Libertarian Party was formed by David Nolan, the late David Nolan, as a reaction to the wage and price controls that were imposed by Richard Nixon, and also because he took the United States off the gold standard, and we now, of course, are living with the consequences of that. So indirectly, Richard Nixon actually helped form the Libertarian Party. We just recently celebrated our 40th anniversary on December 11th, and I'm looking forward to the next 40 years. You know, libertarians believe there are three ways to handle any social economic issue. One, do it yourself. Two, convince other people to do it. And three, force other people to do it. The first two are both voluntary and moral. The third, forcing people to do something, is both involuntary and immoral, and we reject that. Libertarians believe in a voluntary society where individuals are free to choose their own goals, their own beliefs, their own careers. In short, libertarians believe it's your life, it's your body, it's yours to control. Sadly, most people in government don't adhere to that principle. And in fact, they want to interfere with your life and they want to control your life, and we reject that. As I welcome Gary Johnson into the Libertarian Party, I'd also like to extend an invitation to everyone hearing this to join the Libertarian Party and to help restore constitutional rights and the Bill of Rights, which have been sadly stripped away by both Republican and Democratic administrations during my lifetime. To Democrats, I ask, if you still think government should lend a helping hand to those in need, I ask you to look at the evidence. Government always help themselves first, and everyone else is second. That's why we have more poverty, not less. More homelessness, not less. To Republicans who still believe in small and limited government, I ask you to look at the evidence. Every Republican administration over the last 60 years grew government spending. To Occupy Wall Street folks who think government should regulate and tax the rich, again, I ask you to look at the evidence. Big businesses love regulation because it gives a competitive edge over small and medium-sized businesses. That's why the rich grow richer. And that's because they're in bed with both the Republican and Democratic leadership. I think it was Mark Twain who once remarked, when the legislature controls what is bought and sold, the first thing bought and sold is the legislature. To Tea Party folks who still think the Republican politicians this time will hold their ground and not cave, I ask you to look at the evidence. And lastly, to independent voters, as Gary mentioned, the fastest growing set of voters who have rejected both the Republican and Democratic parties, who have already known that part of the problem is the Republican Democratic Party and they are not the solution. I ask you to join the Libertarian Party and to vote for Libertarian candidates as the only real alternative to the status quo. Every political party except the Libertarian Party has lost voter registration from 2008 to 2010, the last years we have figures. So voters are rejecting the duopoly that we call the Republican and Democratic parties. They are the two sides of the same coin. In 2012, the Libertarian Party will attempt for the fourth time in its history to achieve ballot status in all 50 states. No other third party has accomplished this feat in the last 100 years. And we accomplish this all without taxpayer funds. Albert Einstein once remarked that insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. For voters and non-voters alike, don't expect things to change by voting for incumbents of either political party, the establishment parties. They are the problem, not the solution. Don't waste your vote. Vote Libertarian for a chance. Thank you very much, and if we get...
I have my checks with me that I will give you this afternoon. Where shall I sign? So right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. Maybe have my glasses on. It's tough getting old.
And I. All right, and the other? Voter registration card. This feels good. Great, thank you. Great, all right. So at this time, continue with his press conference. Yes, I really believe that the fastest growing segment of the Republican Party are those that have a libertarian bent. I really believe in this agenda. It is about the agenda, and I think Ron Paul talks about this agenda. I'm certainly talking about this agenda. The more people, the more messengers that talk about this agenda, I think the more people hear it, and the more people hear it, the more they come to understand what it's all about, and the more support there is for it. I really had hoped to do this within the Republican Party. I got snubbed by the Republican Party, I think because they didn't want more than just one messenger on stage.
Dr. Johnson, if and when you secure the Libertarian nomination, who would you like to see as your running mate?
You know, that would be a great problem to have, and I hope to have that problem. But right now, I really want to stress that this is no done deal when it comes to the Libertarian nomination. It shouldn't be. It should be an open process, as the Republicans should have had an open process. So in that context, I just look forward to the debate and the discussions within the Libertarian Party about being able to move on and present this to the American people. Yes? Major issues, I guess, would probably encompass border, would be Israel, and the fact that I am not a social conservative. I fundamentally believe in a woman's right to choose. But I think these are minor differences, And for the most part, I endorsed Ron Paul in 2008. I readily endorsed him in 2008. I wish him luck in the Republican primary, but at the end of the Republican primary, I don't think he's going to prevail. And that's another exciting notion about running for the Libertarian nomination, is to be able to continue to talk about this agenda.
What did you think of the handling of the debt ceiling crisis, and how did you handle that?
Well, I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013 if elected president. Now, that isn't promising a balanced budget, because Congress has to go along with that. But if I'm elected president, what is the American people shouting at Congress to do? Balance the budget. I suggest to you that that document that I present, that balanced budget document, a 43% reduction in federal spending, will be very hotly contested. And I suggest to you that spending, even if they override my veto of expenses exceeding revenue, that spending will be lower in that scenario than any other possible scenario that we could come up with. Let me point out something, and that would be, are the Sunday morning talking heads going to talk about Gary Johnson running as a Libertarian candidate for president? Probably not. But will there be thousands of articles written, television productions made, radio appearances that wouldn't have otherwise have happened? Yes, there will be. And then there is always the notion that this could actually catch a little bit of fire, and the potential of being, and again, this is way down the road, but the potential of being on stage as one of 3 candidates running for president of the United States. That exists, that potential exists, and that is really exciting to me. Being on the ballot in all 50 states in the general election, I cannot downplay how significant that is at this time in our country's history. You know, I'm just going to guess at what the Hemp for Victory program was in the 40s, but yes, I would reenact that. I'm just going to guess at that one. I'm going to take a stab at that. Yes. The entire time that I was governor, I thought that I thought the legislature, the Democrats, had a real opportunity here to nationwide to set a course that other states could have followed. I thought they dropped that ball dismally. But yes, it was always about, and so I would have I did sign legislation as governor of New Mexico that were harm reduction kinds of legislation that really did make a difference, but not anything like it could have been. New Mexico could have been a real leader. I would just agree with you that that prescription drugs are, in my opinion, and I base this on my own personal experience, a lot more dangerous than marijuana, for example. But back to being a libertarian, that's a decision that you should make, and only you. And you ought to be given the freedom to exert that choice. Healthcare, what would you do to fix it? The solutions to, in my opinion, all of our problems is real free market approaches. And I think that the criticism of free markets actually ends up to be a criticism of crony capitalism in lieu of free markets. So in a free market system for healthcare, that it would be competitive, that there would be advertised pricing. In a free market economy for healthcare, I would pay as you go in a very competitive environment. I would not have health insurance to cover myself for ongoing healthcare needs. I would have health insurance to cover myself for catastrophic injury and illness. But by the way, healthcare in this country is about as far removed from free market as it possibly could be, and we can thank both political parties for that. Afghanistan. I would withdraw from Afghanistan immediately. When we initially, I thought Afghanistan was warranted. We were attacked. We attacked back. But after having been in Afghanistan for 6 months, I think we wiped out Al-Qaeda. That was 10 years ago. So we're building roads, schools, bridges, highways, and hospitals in Iraq and Afghanistan and other parts of the world, and don't we have those same needs here? So meth and crack are the two best examples of prohibition drugs. Meth and crack wouldn't exist but for prohibition. They're cheap, they're easy to make. Crack just gives you more of a greater high for less money than cocaine. Methamphetamine. I met with judges in Portland, Oregon when I was governor of New Mexico. I didn't know how that meeting was going to go, but what they said was, hey, we're here to support you. We think that what you're saying is right on, but we would like to share with you anecdotally stories that you might pass on to others. They said, methamphetamine is the best example of a prohibition drug that we can think of. It really does alter behavior. It's really the boogeyman drug. It's cheap, it's easy to make, so the consequences fall disparagingly on the poor. They said, we're not suggesting that cocaine be legal, but if it were, these people would never have the problem, we would not have the problem that we have with methamphetamine today. So the only drug that I am advocating legalizing is marijuana, but when it comes to all the other drugs, I think that we should look at the problem first as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue, and that really is a decriminalization. That is really a decriminalization of drugs.
You seem to tiptoe around the real issue, around the drug issue. As somebody who spent a lot of time studying the issue of the legalization or criminalization of drugs, I've come to understand that marijuana is not about marijuana. It's about hemp. It's about...
Exactly. Yeah.
And say economic persons are still occurring today. And unfortunately, so little of the media approaches this. Just as sometimes happens, would encourage a hemp industry that could, in fact, supplant much of the oil.
Look, if I'm elected President of the United States, that is America shouting that we want drug reform. That is America saying, yes, we want to allow a hemp industry. That's no question about that. The Department of Health can declassify marijuana as a Schedule I narcotic. That would happen. I thought running for president that given there are 100 million Americans that have smoked marijuana, I thought each one of them would have donated $1 to my campaign, and that this would be a different situation today, but that hasn't worked out. Preventative health care is the solution. It's education. It's our being more aware and not having health issues to begin with, and for the health issues that we have, addressing them really in a holistic standpoint. I am a firm believer in private property rights. I mean, I think that's the foundation of this country. So I don't know how a pipeline makes it across this country all the way through unless it's within existing easements. I don't know if that's the case, but as governor of New Mexico, I never exercised eminent domain as governor of New Mexico, and I would have a really hard time exercising eminent domain as president of the United States. Well, I think that energy should have free market approaches to energy. Given that, I don't know if we build any new nuclear facilities, given the liability associated with nuclear energy. I would, as President of the United States, look at guaranteeing those liabilities somehow, or some, because nuclear is a part of the entire equation. Nuclear, coal, of course, natural gas, oil. Coal is going to diminish in its use simply because of of the supply that we now have with natural gas. Over the next 50 years, I'll offer you a prediction that the price of coal continues to drop and continues, or it's going to be, I think, a reality that there won't be new coal facilities built because of the availability of natural gas. First of all, I think that the Libertarian Party is the third party, that potentially there will be only 3 parties that will have ballot access in all 50 states, and being able to continue to deliver this agenda, I just think it's exciting, the opportunities that might arise in lieu of dropping out and saying, you know, everybody go and support Ron Paul, which I would ask people to go and support Ron Paul, but I don't think that that's going to work out. And so I'm excited by the notion of just what might occur in a country where right now 61% of Americans are saying that they would vote for a third-party candidate for president. I like it. I like it. Coke, Pepsi, and Red Bull.
The Libertarian Party, as you say, we've been around 40 years. A lot of people have discounted us over the years, thinking that one reason or another, because of the vote totals, et cetera, we continue to decline. But in fact, we are the only political party that's growing in voter registration. And so, as Gary pointed out, you know, well over a majority of the people want a third party. Well, folks, we're here, and we will endeavor to be on the ballot in all 50 states. We are the only third party that's managed to do that in the last 100 years, 3 times. If people want an alternative, we're here. We're willing and able to run candidates not only for President of the United States, but also, and this is very key, in order for Gary to install his agenda, we're going to need a lot of support in both houses of Congress, and we're going to need a lot of support in the state houses around the United States. So we're going to run hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates for partisan and nonpartisan office. So if this is a message that resonates with you, come join us, come and help build the Libertarian Party, because we are on the incline, Republicans, Democrats are on the decline. Join the team that you want, but we're here for you.
You know anything about any of your competitors in the Libertarian Party?
I think they're all very principled, and like I say, I just look forward to the debate and the discussions within the Libertarian Party. This is exciting for me. This isn't about a message that changes. It's just about being able to continue to be the messenger here for an agenda that I think resonates with a whole lot of people in this country. And the more people hear about this, the more they talk about it, the more people that talk about it, the more support there is for it. And I think we're at a crossroads in this country, and that crossroads is do we cease to be this country, or do we address the problems that we have and move on? Well, I would say that don't count or don't stop depending on corn subsidies. Stop depending on any sort of government subsidies.
One of the concerns I have about the Libertarian Party and their sort of hands-off approach is how that will affect religious minorities and racial minorities who are being actively discriminated
because of holes in the civil rights legislation. So how does the Libertarian Party protect the rights of religious minorities, my rights as a religious minority?
I'm going to argue that the Libertarians are going to be the party that does stand up for that. And I will also tell you from my experience as governor, the majority of legislation that passes in legislatures around the country and nationally is legislation that fixes prior legislation. So I'm open to that process of fixing legislation where there should not be any discrimination in this country of any sort. I think libertarians have been more outspoken regarding this than any other party.
We don't like the way you look. It doesn't fit our corporate image policy. So along from just, you got to be back. And this is a discussion that I thought our country had and resolved. We've done it with racial minorities. We've done it sort of with gender. But now we're at a point where religious minorities are being segregated against. And I guess my question is, as president, would you be open to fixing those holes, or would it be more of a hands-off approach, just the principle that there shouldn't be segregation?
Well, I want to really be pragmatic, and that was my approach being governor of New Mexico. So I really find problems with the extreme segment of the Republican Party. I really have issues with the extreme portion of the Democratic Party. When it comes to libertarians, libertarians are right. But I want to be pragmatic, and I want to make things better always. And that was my term as governor of New Mexico. If we can improve on it, no, it's not perfect, but if we can improve on it, you got my signature. I think term limits are really the answer when it comes to politics, and I am a firm believer in term limits. And then salary caps, I might give you an opposite view on salary caps. What if we put salaries to $1 million for congressmen and women, and then barred them from any association with government for the rest of their lives after they got out? That would be my take on that. When candidates talk about reducing pay for congressmen and women, senators, or public servants, and they're saying this in lieu of the fact that they're just made up of the rich, of the elite, well, they're just going to make it more elite by doing that.
I'm going to ask this. How are your neighbors' 2 dogs?
So speak to the questions being asked, and then what about? Yes, and then what about the fact that my neighbor's 2 dogs have created more shovel-ready jobs in this administration? Kate did call our neighbor to come and attend, and I don't think she made it. Joan, are you here? The dogs aren't here. Fair tax. Check it out, fairtax.org. And libertarians, I think, really are going to take the position that no tax is good tax. That when it comes to taxation, that it should be user fees, and I'm in that camp, all right? So fair tax, perhaps best of worst tax. Fair tax, check it out, fairtax.org, that it abolishes all existing federal tax, corporate tax, income tax, does away with withholdings. It's a 23% consumption tax that would be the only federal tax. But that 23% consumption tax, if you're all going, holy cow, it ends up being cost neutral over a very short amount of time, because currently the can of Coke that sells for $1 has 23 cents worth of tax embedded in the product. You take away all existing federal tax, you do away with that 23 cents. Coke doesn't have to sell their product for $1 anymore to make the same profit. They can sell it for 80 cents. And if you're thinking, well, they'll try and sell it for $1, well, they may try, but cola is a very competitive industry. All prices will be dropping. that ends up to be the solution to our exports. We make our exports 23% more competitive when we export goods, and then imports, all imports would be subject to the fair tax, just like, and fair tax applies to new goods and services, and that's a really broad brush, but I think it is, as the name implies, it's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you will pay. Fair tax is unavoidable, and it will also promote savings.
If you become a president, I would like to hear from you, what is your position on immigration issues?
What is my position on immigration issues? I do not think that we should build a fence across the border. I think that would be a tremendous waste of money. I think we should make it as easy as possible to get a work visa. If you want to come into this country and work, make it easy to get a work visa, not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa that would entail a background check and a social security card. If we enact the fair tax, taxes are not an issue. No one avoids paying the fair tax, whether you're legal, illegal, visitor, it's unavoidable. I would like to just think that what I'm talking about is a rational approach to immigration, and the fact that immigration is a good thing. We should be promoting individuals that want to come into this country and work.
How do you view the role of drug spending and drug prohibition in helping minority rights?
Well, the question is, how do you view drug reform as promoting minority rights? Our drug laws are terribly, terribly discriminatory. If you are arrested for a drug-related crime and you are of color, there is a 4 times more likelihood that you will end up in jail if you are not white. So this is about as discriminatory a laws that do exist, and let's not kid ourselves. This is exactly what has happened and continues to happen.
Your thoughts on foreign aid? I think it's a little bit crazy that we're borrowing so much money and then we turn around and give it back out in foreign aid. Sometimes to countries like China that we borrow from. So it's like.
So I'm completely opposed to foreign aid. The fact that we're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending and then we're turning around and giving it to foreign countries. I would like to distinguish between foreign aid, though, and military alliances, believing in military alliances, and that military alliances are key to us being able to reduce military spending by 43%. Other countries need to take up the slack that we have been spending. There are bad things that are happening. There are, I think, threats to the United States that we should be vigilant against. But let's share in this as opposed to taking on the brunt of all military spending. Over 50 cents of the military dollars spent today are being spent by the United States. Military dollars spent worldwide, over 50 cents of that is coming from the United States, and we're 5% of the world's population. By contrast, China is spending about 9 cents out of that dollar. And on the back of a napkin, I've done a calculation that the interest that we're paying China every year for the money that they've loaned us just about pays for their military. Little ironic. So Agenda 21. I was governor of New Mexico for 8 years, and I never once had anything cross my desk with regard to Agenda 21. So I know it's been talked about, but the reality of it is I don't see it anywhere. And no, I don't support Agenda 21. So much legislation is labeled Stop Online Piracy. Sounds like a great thing. How could anybody not sign on to that? Well, as governor of New Mexico, I found out that something that gets labeled as a competitive telecommunications bill, was anything but competitive telecommunications. It was crony capitalism, and so that's my jaded look at government is stop online piracy. Sounds great, but the reality might be something different. No tariffs, free market. If the Chinese government wants to supplement goods and services being sold in the United States, in my opinion, that's to our advantage, and we should take advantage of that, and ultimately China will correct itself. Implementing the fair tax, I think all of that goes away. Implementing the fair tax, in my opinion, issues the pink slip to about 50% of the lobbyists in Washington today.
It's too big a change for us to just accept and say, okay, let's try it. But most of them said, even if there's small improvements, put your name on it. Do you have anything in your thinking now about fair tax that would be incremental improvements that would move us toward that?
When it comes to the tax system, in my opinion, it needs this overhaul. And as President of the United States, I would never stop advocating this the entire time that I was in office as something that is really needed. At the root of all evil, perhaps, is our tax system where it's up for sale and both parties sell it and corporate America is out to buy it, individuals are out to buy it, groups are out to buy it, and there's a marketplace and it gets sold. These would be, so who would I be interested in with regards to Secretary of State? That would be a great problem to have. I'll look at that down the road. And then transportation infrastructure, the fact that the government would sponsor transportation projects, mass transportation projects. I know of no mass transit in this country that pays for itself. None. And the government shouldn't, in my opinion, be involved in subsidizing projects that don't pay for themselves. I've said this many times, and I've done this on the back of a napkin. Do you know what a ticket on the rail runner costs? Do you know what it costs? $8? That's your ticket. That's your cost. The taxpayer's subsidized cost for every time somebody rides on that rail runner is somewhere in the vicinity of $70. That's not right. That is not right.
I'm curious to think how you feel you can win under the Libertarian Party when there are 0 Senate seats, 0 seats in the House, 0 governorships, 0 state senators, and out of 5,400, there's only 1 representative of the Libertarian Party in this country.
Well, so I hope I didn't make the statement that I intended to win, but what I will make the statement, and have, as the Libertarian nominee, I would be on the ballot in all 50 states. This is a time right now in this country that has never existed before. We are fed up with the two-party system. And the ability to be in the game, to be on the ballot in all 50 states is an opportunity to advance this agenda, which I really think resonates with most people in this country.
Yeah. Go ahead. For the choice of the networks. Every other candidate got a woman. If he wanted to, he could have. I'm a proud Republican. Do not ask that.
No, just, Alan, just for matter of fact, I was not being included in debates because the networks had set a criteria that I needed to be at a certain percentage in A, B, C poll to be in that debate. I wasn't in A, B, C poll. I asked the Republican National Committee to stand up to just that fact. Look, if they're going to have debates and they're going to base it on the showing that you have in the polls, then would you just ask them to include my name in the polls? And receive really no response. I have been a Republican my entire life. I don't view this as leaving the Republican Party as much as the Republican Party has left me. So my differences with regard to Israel. I think Israel is and has been an important military ally. When I look at Iran right now, I think that it's naive for any of us to think that Israel is not going to address this issue first, with our interests on the line doing that. So the difference would be Israel has been, will be an important ally. I have been to Israel a couple of times. I've met with Netanyahu. I think it's a mistake for this country to be dictating what Israel should or shouldn't do. Israel is going to act in their best interest. I would discontinue foreign aid to Israel. Having met with Netanyahu, Sharon Peres, Ariel Sharon, I got the impression they don't really care about our foreign aid. They want us to continue to be their ally, which I wholeheartedly support.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Ballot access, as probably a lot of people know, is pretty onerous. Republicans and Democrats typically don't like competition, and they put up significant hurdles to keep us off the ballot. But as I said before, 3 times in our history we've managed to do this. Literally, we will allocate close to $250,000 toward gaining ballot status. These are often rules of Republicans, Democrats, and money they don't typically have to spend. But we will have petitioners, mostly paid petitioners, going out and collecting signatures. Ballot access rules are pretty much different in every state. We do have a dedicated team that knows the ballot access rules in all the 50 states. And so we will be pursuing getting the ballot status in all 50 states. So it's something that's critical for this election. And with your support, if you want to help collect signatures, if you want to donate money to the Libertarian Party, you can go to lp.org and donate money to help us get on the ballot so we can have candidates on all 50 states and obviously president and vice president.
Based on history, I have the expectation that the Libertarian Party will be on the ballot in all 50 states. I wouldn't be up here if I didn't think that possibility doesn't exist. That possibility exists by continuing to run for President of the United States. And it's not the messenger, it's the message, it's the agenda. And so I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was, if I didn't think it wasn't possible. It is possible. I think that's an understatement also.
Question they're asking about the basic tenets of it. If you follow up with some people's fear that fair tax can be regressive for the poor people, could you talk a little bit about the rebate program that's involved in part of the fair tax?
So back to fair tax. Check it out, fairtax.org. Been a proposal that's been around for a long time. It was before Congress in 2007. It is currently a bill that is due to go before Congress. But among other things, one of the criticisms of the fair tax is that it's regressive, that poor people will have to spend more of their money than those that have money. What the fair tax does is it issues everyone in the country, all of us, a $200 a month rebate check. So all of us get a check from the government, in this case the Social Security Administration, for $2,400 a year that basically allows all of us to pay for the fair tax, kind of an unavoidable fair tax that all of us are going to have to pay up to the poverty level. So it's not regressive because of that caveat.
As I understand it, the fair tax would actually offset the damage done to our nation as a result of other countries buying cattle taxes. Am I correct?
The notion that we would be subjecting imports to the fair tax, the notion that our exports would not be subject to the fair tax, really gives us an advantage that I see the entire world reforming themselves to the fair tax. The fair tax does away with all existing federal tax, income tax, corporate tax. In a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector does not create tens of millions of jobs as a result of zero corporate tax, I don't know under what scenario the private sector employs or creates tens of millions of jobs. The Defense Appropriations Bill, it allows for detainment of U.S. citizens without being charged. Isn't that the reason we fought wars in this country, is to prevent detainment of U.S. citizens without being charged? So the direction of this country is exactly the direction that you're talking about, and it's a direction that needs to be reversed. That is my chance, and I want to stress to you the resume that I bring to this endeavor, and that is that I was governor of New Mexico for 8 years. I arguably vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I said no to this kind of stuff, trying to foresee the unintended consequences that go along with signing legislation. What do I think of the TSA? If I would have been President of the United States after 9/11, I would not have established Homeland Security. I think it's incredibly redundant, and I would not have established TSA, leaving airport security to the airports, to the airlines. And I dare say today that air transportation would be as safe and less intrusive. There's just so much unintended consequence that goes along with making government bigger that as a libertarian, I'm going to stand up against. I want to thank you all so much. I'll be glad to stick around and answer as many questions as anybody wants to ask, but thank you all very, very much. Really.